to start the recording. Okay. So before we start, let's start with a question and an answer. I'm sure by now everyone has finished their Spendy app. So it's important to finish that Spendy app because when you are done with the Spendy app, you also have an idea on how to tackle prototyping. You have an idea on how to check for color contrast. You also have an idea on how to do some, you know, some micro interactions. So it's important, and also have an idea on how to work on a web page. So make sure you complete it if you've not completed it. But before we continue with today's class, let's start with questions. Please, if you have any questions, go ahead and raise up your hand so I can point you and you ask your question. Okay, Destiny, let's hear from you. Destiny, go on.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, evening.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So, the question I want to ask is about this about botting this two times rule. This rule where it says that your the vertical padding should be the horizontal padding should be twice the vertical padding. I don't know. Is it possible to exceed the 2x rule, or when creating a button, someone has to just follow that rule?
So one thing you need to understand, whenever someone gives you a rule, right? Whenever someone gives you a rule is just like a guardrail to help you because, like I said, um, you can't learn realistically. You can't learn and master anything in 3 months. Okay, realistically speaking, right? But then when you apply, when you have rules, when you have some guardrails, with guardrails, you are able to learn in such a way that allow you to master some certain things, then understand them better later. Same with when you are learning how to drive, you learn how to just, start the car, move the car, drive, stop, and do all this. You don't go learning how to reason why the car is moving, what is the alternator doing, and all those things. But eventually, you understand all those things. So those rules, all those rules we've given you guys, is just to help make sure that as you are starting, you avoid some mistakes that will make your design look bad. So it's not like they are sacrosanct. There are websites you visit. Okay, there are websites you visit. Let me visit this site. Vimeo. There are websites you visit and their buttons are really large. Even Figma, if you take a look at Figma, if you go to Figma's website, you see how big their button is, right? But not all websites are like that. So the rules you've been given is to make sure that whenever you are designing, at least at this stage, so that you start getting jobs and start getting gigs. These are just rules, guidelines to guide you. At the end of the day, when you've gotten used to the rules, you can break it anytime you want. Okay, so it's not like it's compulsory, but it's a good place to start and a good place to stick to. Whenever you're learning things like design, you don't want to stretch yourself too much, right? And like all those typeface like Inter and the rest, they just help make your design look nice. Inter, Roboto, right? But as you progress in your career, you start exploring different font options. So that's how it works. So yes, that rule is to help make sure the button looks balanced. But you can always change it. But don't change it now. Don't change it now. With time, you can make those decisions. But for now, just work with the rule. It will help your design to look better. Okay. Um, any other question? Okay, continue, Destiny.
Okay, thank you, sir. So my
Yeah.
last question is, I think I've actually asked this question before. So, but I think I need more clarification, and it's about icons. When you are trying to import icon from different plugins, sometimes you discover that the dimensions of these icons are in decimal numbers or decimal figures. So although that to that I think you said I can actually frame it. So but what if it's in the case of illustrations, like when you're working with this, you are importing an illustration that is very big in size, and then that illustration is has decimal in its dimensions. So in that case, do you also frame, or what can we do in such situation?
Okay. Now, when it comes to sizing elements, so please let's pay good attention because these are good questions, and answering them will help you make decisions faster as you're starting. Okay. Uh, Now, whenever you're working on a site or an app, right now you are advised to use whole numbers so that it's easier for you. You are not advised to use decimal because using decimal, you start having issues with balancing elements. So let's say I'm working on a mobile app. Okay. Remember, you are the designer, you are the one that have the freedom to choose the sizes. Now, since I'm working on a mobile app, I want to go with iPhone 13 mini because it is the base, the smallest of them. So I can actually go from small to large. Now, when you are designing, this is your real estate. This is your real estate. You arrange things here based on the content you have. Okay, you find out that if you have more content, you might want to squeeze things a little bit together. If you have less content, you have to be a little bit liberal with your space sharing. But at the end of the day, you must make sure that you don't overchoke things or you don't overspace things. But before you even start with spacing, the first thing you want to take care of is where your content is going to be. Your content is different from things, let's say backgrounds. So your background and your containers, they are a little bit different from your main content. Every design you are doing, we have your main content like the text, like the main images and the rest of them. Now, those content, you want to make sure they don't start from the edge here or stretch to the edge here. Already, this place is not, you are not advised to put anything here because about 72 px of this is going to be your what? Your status bar, and then going to the bottom you have your home button or the back button right here, so nothing is supposed to be at the bottom here. Now, how do you fix for this side? You introduce what you call margin. So please pay attention. You have to introduce what you call margin to make sure your contents don't come up, don't get to this stage. So for this, let me just draw boxes here. So I'm going to do 24. That means I want to use 24 px margin. So I'm going to do 24 and drop this here. Let me also duplicate it and drop this here. Now let me just introduce a soft grid. Soft grid simply means dragging this ruler. You see this ruler? I'm just going to drop it here. And I'm also going to, by the way, it will snap automatically. I'm also going to drop it here. Now, this is telling me that nothing is going to be here except for backgrounds. So if I have like a background, let's say a black background, yes, of course, backgrounds can extend. Okay, backgrounds can extend, but content can't extend here because it's just going to look too squeezed. By the way, this box I'm using is just another way to be a little bit more calculative. You can still use your grid. Okay, if I wanted to use the grid, I could also do layout grid and set this to column, right? Set this to column and set this to 4 or 2 depending on what I'm doing. Then I will come to margin and set it to 24. So it's the same thing. You can see it's the same thing. So I'm just using these things as guide, but I didn't want to go all the way to column. So I don't want a situation by tomorrow now You will not ask me why did I use soft grid instead of color. Is there any advantage? There is no advantage. In fact, there are people that design without any grid. They just place buttons. They just place these icons, these rectangles here of different sizes, and they use it for their measurements, you know. So now, back to what you're saying. If you have this, you find out that the space you have for your content, okay, in terms of width, is about 327. You can see that this 327 is not even a number that is rounded up. Okay. Now, when you are doing everything in full grid, you can see it's around 327. That is fine. But let's say you have an icon, like you said, okay, what if you have an icon and then you paste the icon and the icon is in what did you it's in fraction, it's in decimals. Now, for your icons, we insist on making sure that it is consistent. So icons are usually 24 by 24 pixels. So I'm just going to draw a frame here and call it 24 by 24. 24 by 24. Let's give it a fill so that we can always find it. So even if you drag an icon, let's go to icon noir. So let's come to icon noir. So if I come here, let's say I pick this icon, let's use, okay, let's use icons, let's use, just trying to pick one. Okay, let's pick this icon, for instance. So I'm just going to copy. By the way, if you are using icon noir, make sure you maintain these settings. If you increase this setting, make sure you maintain them so you have consistency. Let me select this and paste it. So you can see my icon, the icon came with a frame of 24 by 24, and I've also created a frame of 24 by 24. Now, some issues you are likely going to have. If you notice, this 24 by 24 icon, it didn't touch the edge. It's not like edge to edge. It's not edge to edge. So anytime you are designing an icon, it is advised that you should have like, let me change the color of this so we can zoom in. Anytime you are designing an icon, it is advised that you should like have some spacing around it, about 4 of them. So if you zoom in, you're not seeing the grid. I didn't turn on the grid. So if you zoom in, you always have spacing around it. So 24 by 24 does not mean it must be 24, because if you go inside, this is the main icon. This 1, 2, 3. These are the main icon elements, 1, 2, and 3. Are you getting it? If you check this circle is just about 20 by 20. So it's not 24 by 24. But you are to make sure that you have a frame that is 24 by 24, and then the icon have like a space inside. So if you have an icon that is in a decimal point, what you can do is to draw a frame of 24 by 24, okay? A frame of 24 by 24, then drag that icon inside. But make sure it is not going edge to edge. And then that way you can have icons of uniform width and height, okay? Do you get? So if you have an icon that you dragged in and you notice that it's not 24 by 24, okay, what you can do is to first get a frame, then make that frame 24 by 24, then put the icon inside that frame. Are you getting? But make sure that icon is not touching edge to edge. There should be at least 4 pixels round that your 24 by 24 frame. Okay, so if I select this circle direct, and you can see you have like 2, 2, 2, 2. Are you getting? On left and right you have 4, top and bottom you also have 4. So make sure you maintain that for the spacing so that the icon can have breathing space. Now there is also a difference between an icon and illustration. Okay, there is a difference between icon and illustration. Icons basically are functional. Okay, icons are functional. Illustration might not be functional, so you should also take note of that. um Let me bring in something. I'm trying to get any website where I have, okay, uh Can I see anyone on this website? Okay, let me not go too far. But there are some icons that are icons are functional. Those are the ones you maintain 24 by 24. Okay, good. Something like this now. In as much as they are icon, this is more of like illustrations. So these ones you can expand them. But once it's an icon, okay, that is functional, you want to make sure it's 24 by 24 px. Something like this, yes, you might say this is an icon, but these are just illustrations representing different brand. So these ones you can even increase the size to like 40 by 40, 50 by 50 if you want. And if they are labels, if they are for labels, you might even reduce the size. Instead of 24 by 24, you might even go 16 by 16 or 100 by 100. Okay. Did I answer your question, Destiny?
Yes, to some extent.
Like I said, if you bring in an icon and it has decimal numbers, what you want to do, draw a frame. Make sure it's a frame, not a rectangle. Make that frame 24 by
So
24
I'm qualified
and
for
drag
this
your
icon.
icon right inside. You said?
Okay, yeah, I understand. I've been qualified for this for the icon. So, but for illustration, like you
Mm.
said, that are not necessarily functional. So those ones they can just be scaled and then or left the way they are with decimals.
You can just leave them the way they are in decimals. But if you want to manage your space better, you can just draw a frame. Let's assume I have three illustrations to add here. Okay. Let's assume I have three illustrations to add here. And I want to make sure that they are visually equal. What can I do? What I can do is to first come here and draw a frame. Okay. So these are just simple techniques you can use. If I have an illustration, there are different sizes, and I want to make sure visually they look the same, I'll come here and draw a frame. Like I said, I have three illustrations, right? So because I have three illustrations, I'll draw three frames. Okay. So one, I'll duplicate, two, and then Control D, three. Then I'll select the three of them and then increase this. Okay, now I have three boxes. So now I can now drop my illustrations inside them and resize them, making sure that they are having the same spacing from the top to the bottom. That way all their heights will be the same. So even if it is a fractional number, it doesn't matter because visually they will all look the same. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, any other question? Please ask questions because next week we are designing. I'm waiting for you guys. Okay, so no questions. Okay, Ahmed, do you have question? Ahmed, do you have any question? Okay, Destiny, ask your question.
Okay, sir. There's this question that I've been longing to ask, and it's about the whole design, the role of the design. So there is this reluctance. I don't know whether I should call it reluctance or there's this issue I'm having, and it's with designing stuffs and putting them online. So it's like there is this person that was actually putting me through design before, and then you always tell me that I should just design, put things online. And then sometimes I don't even know the way to go about it. So I don't know. I want the question I'm asking now, because we've actually started UX. So is it through this UX process that is it the pathway to building any kind of application I want to build? Because initially the person will just tell me that just design, and sometimes when I'm thinking of things to design, I'm just bankrupt of things to do. So I say let me ask so that maybe I can get clarification on that.
Okay. Um, Everyone can design, anybody can design anything and post online. It could look nice. In fact, people just sometimes copy other people's design and post. But that is not really the the main thing people are looking for. Like when recruiters are trying to recruit. Don't forget, we talked about the component of this UX, UI, UX design. We said it has to do with things like the information architecture, the visual design, the interaction design, the copywriting, right? And how intuitive that design looks. So it has to do with all these things. So when you have a design to do, although today's class we are discussing and talking about creativity as well, we when you have design to do, even if you see a design somewhere and you want to try and replicate it, make sure there is something you are introducing to that design. Okay, make sure there's something you're introducing to that design. Now sometimes people might want to make it look like it's difficult. It's not difficult. I give this example. On OPay, I don't use OPay, but I saw the thing on Twitter and I was actually happy when I saw that feature. Something as simple as showing people how long it will take to transfer is a good feature that when someone presents their design without showing that information, and you present your own and it has that information, and they ask you, why did you have this timer here? And you are able to explain that, okay, this will make sure that the user knows how long it will take for the transfer to complete, so they don't get panic. You find out that you put in some thoughts into your own design, right? And people will prefer your own. So yes, you can just design and post online, but make sure that you are inside the design, not outside the design. Don't just look at the design and design, right? Think about the design, think about everything that is inside that design and look for ways to make it better. And yes, make sure you start designing. Don't wait till you get to a specific level. The most important thing is your mindset, the thought process behind that design, not really the design itself. Anybody can, even now, self AI can generate all these screens, right? But what AI still don't know how to do is the putting in the thought process. Are we together? Okay. Who else have a question before we move ahead? Okay. So I'm going to proceed then, since we don't have any other question. I just want to make sure we don't have question that will drag us back, because this is like the last theory class we're having on UX. The other ones, I'll just send you guys some things to read. Okay. So when it comes to UI, you have to practice. When it comes to UX, you have to read. If you don't like reading, look, buddy, don't worry. Okay, that's the journey so far. So let's take a look at some things. So in the product development cycle, we talked about something like this last time, but I'm just doing this as a refresher again. So this is what you call a product development cycle, right? So in the product development life cycle, you have the first stage, just like Destiny is saying. So you have to brainstorm, think of the problem you want to solve, right? So the product development cycle includes the brainstorming stage. This is where you think about what to solve and you think of how to solve it. You think of the problem on ground. Okay, you think about the problem on ground, you come up with different solutions, right? Different options. That's brainstorming. After that, you define, okay, when you have definition is where you now have a clear pathway of what exactly you want to do. Okay, a clear pathway of what exactly you want to do. And after you are done defining, you move on to designing the product, right? You move on to designing the product. And once you are done designing the product, you test. And after testing, you launch. Now, when you launch, it's not a linear process. In fact, sometimes when you test, you have to come back to define, because probably there's an issue somewhere, or you have to come back to design. Also, when you launch, it's not a one-off stuff. When you launch, it's iterative, because when you launch, that's when you start using tools like Hotjar right? To start looking for places on the app or website where people are experiencing issues. Are you getting it? So as you identify them, you ideate again, you prototype, you design, you test, you launch. That is how you keep designing. So this is like the product development cycle. You should know about it. You brainstorm, you define, you design, you test, and then you launch. So what exactly makes a good product? So when you are designing a product, there are some things you should make sure the product covers. So, what exactly makes a good product? Number one, a good product must be useful. Like I said, don't just go online. You see a design someone did and you bring it to Figma and then redesign it and then maybe change the color and then maybe where they wrote Papa, you wrote Pale. No, don't do that. Okay. Make sure that whatever it is you are designing is useful. It should be solving a user's problem. And then this problem we are saying, we keep saying solving user problem. It is not village people's problem. It is not serious problem. It is problems like, for instance, the reason why I don't have OPay is because when I wanted to get the OPay app, right, I discovered that they asked for my BVN. And then when I entered my BVN, it needed to confirm that that's actually my BVN by sending an SMS to the phone number linked to my BVN. But unfortunately, I don't have access to that number anymore, and I've not been able to go to the bank to change the number. So that's a problem for me because I was not able to complete that sign up process. If not for today now, I would have been an active OPay user. So if you see something like that, how do you think you can redesign this thing so that people like me can actually use that app? Because I fall under user who have their BVN but don't no longer have um, the phone number attached to their BVN. So you could say, okay, why don't I on that screen where they are asking me to, enter the OTP that was sent to my phone number, you could just add a feature whereby you can ask something like, don't have access to your phone, send to email instead, right? So that when I choose that option, they will now send it to my email. Although this is just a design, like I said, you have to test it. Maybe during the testing, or if you do more research, it might be like a policy issue. Maybe it could be that central bank said, no, you must use your phone number to verify DGN, that they can't send OTP to email. In that case, it's a policy issue. That means in as much as you provided a design, it might not work. So if they are going to implement that kind of solution, it will be from the central bank direct. Are you getting? But at least you've been able to ideate and say, okay, let's give this person more option. That is how you could solve that problem. So these are the kind of problems we keep talking about. So it's not like saving the world kind of problem. Although some people want you to believe that it's saving the world kind of problem. No, it's not. It's basically helping people complete a specific task. Before now, I think all of us we grew up in the smartphone era. Before now, there are a lot of things you might want to do online that was not possible. All of you remember when, if you want to pay school fees or if you want to make any bank transaction, you have to literally go to the bank and queue. That was a big problem. Someone decided, you know what if we provide a platform that allow people to send transfers to themselves online without having to come to the bank? That is what product design is all about. That problem was solved with apps that allows for what? Interbank transfers. Okay. Now, if you want to travel to anywhere right now using the train, you literally have to, I'm talking about for Abuja, you have to literally go to the train station and get your ticket, which is another problem. What if you provide a platform that allow people to, at the comfort of their home, book their flight ticket, get the ticket, sorry, their train ticket, and when it's time, they come there and then they take the train easily. without having to queue. You have solved the problem. Okay. I'm trying to give you guys instances of the problem we keep talking about when it comes to product design and how some people have solved it. Okay. Now, someone somewhere was like, the issue of people having to, you have to, if you want to go out, you have to literally dress. And after dressing, you come out and wait on the road for taxi, right? The inconvenience and everything. Someone thought of, what if I create a platform that allow people to just from the comfort of their home schedule a ride, and then the ride meets them. And then you have things like Uber, boats, all of them. You have those things. You have people solving the same problem in restaurants, online restaurants. You have people solving the same problem in different ways. WhatsApp solved communication problem. Are you getting it? Now, you, if you are in the university, you probably find out something. There might be something you always try to do, but there are frictions. Okay, there might be things you want to do, but there are frictions. For instance, um, let's say in your university, in your department, you people have all this kind of group learning. Okay, but you discover that it's difficult for you to find people that you can go and study with. You can now say, you know what, let me design an app whereby anyone that wants to learn can come there, create a group, and people that wants to join them can join them, and they set a time, and once that time reach, the app reminds them, and all of them meet and then they study. You have solved that problem of not knowing which group to join. I don't know if it's becoming clearer now. Google Meet solve the problem of online meeting, because instead of call, you if you want to have a meeting, you probably have to meet physically, or you drive and go to the person because the person wants to have this personal interaction with you. But with Google Meet now, you can still have it. See how we are all connected, right? We are all connected here, and we are having this online class. So the product you are doing must solve a problem. So if you are taking a screen online and say you want to redesign it, before you even start redesigning it, try to understand what problem or what is the essence of that particular screen, what is the usefulness of that particular screen. When you understand it, you give it a thought and find out how can you make it easier. That takes me to the next one. The product or the screen or whatever it is, it must be usable. Usable simply means it to be clear and easy to use. You don't want to create a design that will confuse people, right? For instance, what do I mean by usable? If you don't plan your design well, you might design a screen that is supposed to have a back button, but on your design, it doesn't have a back button. Now the question is, if the person lands on the screen, if the user lands on that screen and they need to go back, and you have not provided option for them to go back, you see, it's now like a dead end. The person have to literally swipe out the app and log in back to get back to where they were. But if you put in thoughts to it, you are able to say, okay, this person will need to log in, need to go back. So let me put the back arrow. Are we together? Another thing is it should be enjoyable. It should delight the user. So this is where good color comes in, good color combination, good fonts, nice animations, motion, interaction. This is where they literally come in. Okay, so this is where they come in, and it should also be equitable. It should be a design that can help, that can be helpful to a lot of people. So you always want to consider accessibility. So this is what makes a good product. Now, by Monday, I'll be sending in some of these things for you guys to go through. Okay. But then let's talk about different frameworks used for UX design. So, like we talked about last on Tuesday, right? On Wednesday, we talked about the simple steps you follow in the UX design process. We said for the UX design process, you research. After researching, you design, and after designing, you test, then you iterate, right? Now, that is just the basics of all UX design process. If you want to design anything, you must do some form of research. Again, this research is not the one for discovering how to launch rockets and bring them back to Earth. No, it is not scientific. It is not that serious. This research is mostly observations and then empathizing. Are you getting it? For instance, if you want to, let's say I'm not a student, I'm not in the university, and I want to find out how are people in the university coping, or how are they transporting themselves to school. What I can do is I can decide to say, you know what, let me ask some students who are in school. I can go to a particular school and ask students, so please, how do you transport to school? How do you handle your transportation to school and this? And they tell me. Or I can go to that school, meet someone I know, and stay in that school. And in the morning, I wake up and observe everyone, observe a few people, right? See, okay, this is they woke up, they prepared for school. Maybe they stood in front of the gate or they enter keke. The keke took them to this junction. And that way, I'll follow them throughout that day and see how they solve their transportation issue. That is what we mean by research. Because from taking note of all these things, you can now find ways to make the process faster and easier for them. That's if you can come up with a solution, right? So that's what we mean by research. So you research, right, knowing the people you are building something for. For instance, if you are asked to create like a fintech solution and you didn't research, you didn't know the kind of people you are asked to develop it for, and you just went ahead to Figma and you finished designing and everything looks so nice, or for you to realize that, only for you to realize that that application is to be used in a village where there is no internet network and they don't even have smartphones. So you find out that you didn't take time to understand who the users are, and then you've designed for the wrong users. But if you took time and you find out that, oh, these people are in the villages and they don't even have internet access. So the solution could now be something like an USSD, or something like this thing that MTN is doing with Momo, whereby if you want to send someone money, all you need to do is to locate a Momo agent and you send them airtime. They convert that airtime to cash and give the recipient. So this is the function of design. This is the function of research in design. Researching helps you understand how to create that design. For instance, if you are designing an app, let's say a map app that is going to be mostly used by students, it will make more sense to make sure that you design the map in such a way that you tell the developer that this map needs to be available offline, so that even when students don't have data, they are able to still access it. Are we together? So over the years, people have been coming up to set out different frameworks that allow them to complete the UX design process and have consistent results all the time. You can come up with your own, you can come up with your own style. It depends, right? It depends. You can come up with your own format. But there are some that are actually very popular. And on the number one, you have design thinking. Then you have double diamond, you have lean UX, jobs to be done, you have agile US. You can take note of these things and read them later. But they are not sacrosanct. You must not use them. Okay. Remember, the core of the UX design process is research, design, test. That is the core. All these people, all these other framework, they might just call them different names or use different approach to do that research. Okay, but it's still research, design, test. We're not going to be talking about most of them. We're just going to look at the most popular one, which is the design thinking framework. Have anyone heard about the design thinking framework? If you've heard about it, raise up your hand. Okay, okay, great. So what do you understand by the design thinking framework, Rema?
So I thought you say you have heard. I've actually heard, but I've not
Okay.
actually studied it.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Anyway, like I said, the main UX design process is what? Research, design, test. But with the design thinking framework, they broke it further into 6 steps, right? Because now, this is a very popular question that you always be asked in an interview. If you're having any interview, right? They will ask you, what is your design process? Your design process could be different, though. There are different ways to design to achieve any design. For instance, now, your design process could be that um, you get a design, you speak with stakeholders to understand what they want, and then you design and then test. Some people's process could be that they get the design brief, they design, and after designing, they test and refine. Okay? So there are different types of processes. You know the process you are using to achieve your own results. But then let's take a look at this design thinking framework. So this design thinking framework, so if you are just starting up, it makes sense to say, okay, I used the design thinking framework. Okay, but it is not the only framework. If your own is that you had a meeting whereby you understood exactly what the customers want, the clients or the users wants to do, then you went ahead to design it based on the most important thing they want to do, and then you tested it. That's like jobs to be done, right? But the most popular one that almost is recommended for anyone that's just starting out, it is this design thinking framework, because it lays out the steps in a very simple way that is easy for everyone to understand. And then it's still based in these 3 things that we talked about: understand, explore, materialize. Now they can change the words, it does not matter. Understanding means research, explore means the design, materialize means test. Are you getting it? You research to understand what you're about to do, you explore different ideas to create your design, and then you test it, right? But you can see how they've expanded it into 6 stages, which is the first one where you empathize. Empathize is basically putting yourself in the shoes of the user, right? Putting yourself in the shoes of the user. That's basically what empathize means. So if you put yourself in the shoe of the user, you are able to use the app, you're able to envisage how you are likely going to use the app and then make options for them. Okay. Now, under define, after empathizing with the clients, with the users, you now know their pain, you know their pain points, you know exactly what they want to solve. Under define, you can now say, okay, this is what you are going to solve, right? Then after that, you proceed to ideate solutions on how to solve that problem you've identified and you defined. After ideating the solution, you can now go ahead. Remember, ideating the solution could be, for example, this fintech app I told you about, I just mentioned. But the time you've empathized and you've understood the user's pain points, they want to be able to transfer money from someone to them so that they can easily get it. And then you've defined and said, okay, we are going to be solving the problem of people being able to receive money in the remote parts of Nigeria. Under ideating, someone can say, okay, why don't you build an app? But then you find out that that idea might not work because based on your research, they don't have internet access. Someone can say, okay, why don't you build a bank that will send money to, and they'll be going to those banks to withdraw. Another person might say, these people are not that educated. They might not be able to write, right? And someone might say, okay, why not? Since all of them, they understand the concept of airtime, or they know agent, they are more related to people in the community. Why don't we use airtime? You send airtime to those people and they meet the community agents and collect the money. Now that is where you've now ideate what you want to solve, how you are going to solve it. After ideating, you create the prototype, right? You create the prototype, and after the prototype, you now test it to see if it's working. If it's working, you implement. But remember, it is not a linear process. Sometimes it might even be at your prototype level that you notice an issue. Because when it comes to product design, when you think of a particular feature to add, you won't even know that it will be up to like 5 screens. In fact, the fifth screen might even lead to another 10 screens. Are we together? So you test and then you implement. So this is the design thinking framework: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, and implement. But like I said, this is not the only process. Okay, it's not the only process. In fact, a lot of people just go straight to design, they test, and then get user feedback and iterate. Okay, so there are a lot of design processes that you can use, but this can guide you. This can be like your starting point, whereby if you want to start a project, you first of all try to understand the user, their pain point, and things like that. Then you go ahead and define the problem, ideate the solution, prototype it, then call in some people to test it with them. If there is any adjustments, you go and make the adjustments. Okay, then you implement. And after implementing, remember the cycle continues based on the product development cycle. And based on what we said about research here, okay, based on what we said about understanding here that you want to do research, there are three major types of research. Okay, there are three major types of research. I hope people are taking notes. Okay, you can always rewatch the video and take notes again, but make sure you are really understanding it and taking notes. So, in case when it comes to research, you have three types of research. You have foundational research, you have your design research, and you have your post-launch research. So those foundational research are like the first type of research you make before starting a project. They include things like user research. They also include things like market research. Market research will help you make sure that you are not designing a product that people don't need. Are you getting it? Because, for instance, let's say you live in an estate and you decide, you know what, I want to create an app, right? Let's say you want to create a restaurant, and that restaurant you want to build out the experience exclusively for like maybe blind people. Okay, but then during your research, you realize that that location is only one blind person that stays in that location. Now, because of this, you find out that that person alone might not be able to sustain that business, so you won't go ahead and do it. So market research is very important. Okay, those are all under what? Foundational research. Okay, so you do foundational research before the product, before you start building. Now, once you've done your foundational research and you want to start building, you do design research. Now, aside digital product design, if you're just talking of product design, let's say physical product, design research includes things like researching about the kind of material to use, the kind of the technology to use. Okay, so this is where design research comes in. And after design research, you've launched. Okay, after design, you test and launch, right? Now, after launching, you now start post-launch research. In the case of UI UX, this is where tools like Hotjar comes in, because with Hotjar now, by the time you've launched it, you can now see how people are using the app, where they are facing issues on the app, and then you can now start solving those issues, getting user feedback, implementing the feedback, and solving those issues little by little. Just like the way WhatsApp looked like 5 years ago is not the way it's looking now. Little by little, they keep getting user feedback and they keep improving it. Okay, that is post-launch research. Now, when you are doing research, what type of research how many types of research do we have? Well, we have only two types of research, but these two types of research is determined by two things. Okay, it's determined by one, who is conducting the research, and two, what type of data are you collecting during the research? Are we together? Types of research is determined by one, who is conducting the research, and two, what type of data are you collecting during the research? Now, if you are the one conducting the research by yourself, that is called a primary research, which you might not likely always do, but you could do it. Like if you conduct a survey, yes, you did it, okay? Or you could base off your research based on someone else's research. That one is secondary research. We call it secondary research or desk research. Okay. So if your research is based up on maybe something someone else did already, Maybe instead of going to conduct market research by yourself, instead of going to say, okay, let me find out the number of students we have in Nigeria, instead of going to set up an organization and say, okay, we want to make sure we count the number of people, you set up everything, and you start counting the number of people in Nigeria. If you simply do a Google search of what is the number of people in Nigeria, some companies would have done those research, and then you pick the insights from there. That one is secondary research. Are you getting it? So types of research, depending on who conducted the research. If it is you that did it, then it's primary research. If you are basing your research based on someone else's work, that is what secondary research. So in most projects, you want to do some primary research and also some secondary research. They are not exclusive. Okay, you want to do some primary research and you also want to do some secondary research. Now, the next type of research is based on the kind of data you collected. The kind of data you collected, okay? So we have two types of data. We have qualitative data and quantitative data. Now, quantitative data has to do with numbers, right? Quantitative data has to do with numbers. When you hear quantitative, just remember quantity, quantity, quantitative, quantity, quantitative. So quantitative data is used to find out trends. Maybe you want to find out how many people are using this app in a specific location. You want to do what? A quantitative what? What you need then is a quantitative what? Data. That means you might send out a pool and ask people, do you use this solution or this app? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. And by the time you look at the total number of people that said yes compared to the total number of people that said no, you have your insights. It could be that you want to know how different apps in the same category compare to each other. Then you can do what? A quantitative research. Okay, whereby you ask the people, which of this app do you use? Then they'll say, I use this one, I use this one, I use this one, I use this one, or I use that one. That is quantitative data, because by then you see the numbers and you'll be able to know, oh, this is the most important one. Now, maybe you have two designs, but you don't know which one to go for or which one is going to work best. You can post it like on Twitter and ask people, A or B. Now that is what quantitative research. Some people come and say A, some people come and say B, and at the end of the day, you count the total number of people that said A. If people that chose A is more than people that chose B, then you can now proceed with option A. That is what quantitative data, and what you've just done is called a quantitative research. So some of you are already doing this without knowing the names. So this is called a quantitative research. And because you did it yourself, it is a primary quantitative research. Are we together? Now, the next one is qualitative. While quantitative will give you the trends, qualitative will give you the reason behind the trend. So let's go back to that example I gave. You went to Twitter, you put up two designs, and you say A or B. If people are just saying A, B, A, B, A, B, at the end of the day, you find out that, okay, A won, but you would have missed out on why A won. So understanding the reason why behind people's choices is called a qualitative research. So that means in that pool now, if you want to gather both quantitative and qualitative, you can now ask people A or B, why? You can now ask an open-ended question like, why did you choose A? Are you getting it? Now you can now say people say, okay, I chose A because A, the design is more clean, it has more space, it blah blah blah. And that person will say, no, I chose B because so everything you are now doing at that point, you know the reason why people are doing what they're doing. So you find out that whenever you are conducting your research, once you have your research goal, okay, once you have your research goal, you want to be able to know why people are doing what they're doing or why people are making so choices. Are we together? So three types of research: foundational research, design research, post-launch research. Now, when it comes to those research, there are different types, okay? There are two main types, but it depends on who is conducting the research and the type of data they are collecting. If under who, we have primary and secondary. Under data, we have quantitative research and qualitative research. Now, one research can actually combine all of them. One research, you might need to do some yourself, and then some secondary sources. And then in those ones you are doing yourself and those secondary resources, you might be collecting both quantitative and qualitative data. So they are not mutually exclusive. Are we together? So, which brings us to different types of research methods. So, for your research methods, you could do interviews, okay? But right now, you might not have enough money to do interviews. But if you have someone you can interview for free, why not? So, you could do interviews. So, all these big companies, they have focus groups. These are people they pay, and then you use them for your interview. There are also online, even on Hotjar. You can actually register on Hotjar to say, okay, I want to help, I want to register as someone that people can interview, and then you make money from there. But people in Nigeria, they hardly reach out to people in Nigeria. So in case you travel, you can register for all those things. Or in case you live in Nigeria and go to Ghana. So different types of research methods. You can use interviews for your research, or you can use survey for your research, or you can conduct usability testing. You can do heuristic evaluation. You can do card sorting, focus group, customer journey mapping, NPS survey, direct studies. There are a lot of them, but these are like the popular ones. But what we are likely going to be doing here is surveys. We'll do survey, we'll do usability testing, we'll do heuristic evaluation. But now the problem is, how do you know when to use each of these research methods? I know some of you might be saying, okay, how do I know when to use which? Well, it all depends on your research goal, okay? For instance, heuristic evaluation is only used when you have the product. If you don't have an already existing product, you can't conduct a heuristic evaluation. So you must conduct it based on some certain benchmark, okay? So how and when do you know which one to use? Enters this particular diagram. So I'll be sharing some of these slides so that in case you need to go through it, you go through it. But I usually prefer you write things down. Okay? As you are watching, you take notes, you write it. Once you write something down, it sticks to your brain and it's easy for you to remember. And these things are not for you to cram. They are valuable. You can always do some Google search, you see them. It's not for you to cram. Okay. So let's take a look at when do you use which one? So you have behavioral and you have attitudinal. And how to know exactly which one to use depend on the context. I get in the context of the product used during the time we are collecting the data, the context. Now, if it is natural use of product, that means the product is already in the hands of the users. Okay? The product is already what? In the hands of what? The users. So the users are already using the product. That is what you mean by natural use of products. For those type, if you want to uncover issues or you want to uncover problems with the product or you want to uncover ways to make the product better, what you probably want to do, you want to do things like customer feedback. You probably want to get feedback from those users and then use it to refine the product. Okay? You also want to do things like diary studies or contextual inquiry, field studies, eye tracking, clickstream or analytics, and also A/B testing. These things, you are not supposed to cram them. I'm just giving you this information ahead of time. In fact, you might never conduct an eye tracking research until your career ends. But it's important to know that they exist. In fact, Hotjar conduct replace their eye tracking with heat map. Okay, but then there are some type of groundbreaking research that need eye tracking. For instance, the Apple Vision Pro If you notice, you control it with your eye movements and gestures. So for that one now, to train that their software, right, to be able to be that sensitive, they did a lot of eye tracking research, okay, where they were tracking people's eyes to be able to use that data to train the model of what is going to be controlling that operating system. Are we together? So you can see that it's not because we mentioned all of them, you now go and start saying, you want to learn all of them. No, you can't say you want to learn all of them. But we are going to show you the most important ones, and these are the ones that are used, because the chances of you finishing this training and working with Apple is 1 in 1 billion. Okay, 1 in 1 billion, because Apple is just one company, but there are millions of other companies that are also looking for a service. Are you getting it? And those millions of companies, they might not have so much money to say they want to do eye tracking or all those things. So you use the most popular ones. Okay, so if you want to conduct research in the natural use of a product, you probably want to use these ones that are on green. Now for things like websites and apps, one of the most used ones is customer feedback, contextual inquiry, and then A/B testing. You can also do clickstream to know what people are clicking on so that you can uncover insights. But the most popular one, A/B testing, contextual inquiry, and customer feedback. Things like diary studies can be more expensive and might even give you wrong insights, because everybody did different. People might not even remember to write down what they did, right? So customer feedback, I already showed you guys how to do that on Hotjar, whereby you can set up a survey and place it on your website to get the customers' feedback. Okay, let's say people are you are the UI UX designer in one in an e-commerce organization, e-commerce brand, and you notice that people are adding items to carts, but they are not checking out. You can actually create like a feedback and place it on that checkout page, right, on that add to cart page, so that when next they go to that cart, that question can come up and say, maybe you can now ask them something like, so why haven't you checked out? Are you experiencing any problems? They might now say, yes, when I come to the cart page, I don't know how to proceed to payment. Or they might say, no, I'm just keeping them here, so I'll check out later. So from asking them that question, you gain insight. You can't do research without asking question or having a goal. Now, what if it's a scripted use of product? Scripted use of product is where you you bring in people and then you ask them to do this on this task. Remember, it's no longer in the hands of the real users. This is what you do before you launch a product. So whenever you finish your design, before you launch it, when it gets to the natural use of product, the kind of research you want to do is a scripted use of product, whereby you call people maybe after you finish your design to check if it is actually clear and intuitive. You can ask someone, okay, on this website, can you actually buy something and check out? Let's see. Then you start watching the person. Okay, in some cases you start watching the person, you watch maybe the person will be like, okay, so to buy, I'm going to click on this. Okay, I want this shoe, so I'm clicking on this shoe, and okay, so it has brought me to the shoes page. So I'm going to, okay, so I can actually increase my quantity. I can increase my quantity, and I'm going to do checkout. Then when I do checkout, it gets to the cart. Now, maybe if you didn't design it well, by the time the thing gets to cart, they no longer see where that product is, and then they get confused. So you now start taking note of all those things. Now, if it is a scripted use, the kind of research you want to do is usability testing or remote moderated testing, unmoderated testing, usability benchmarking, or eye tracking. Hotjar can help you do most of these things, which we took a look at. Like I told you, you find out that Hotjar can record people's screen, right? So if you design and you have Hotjar inside that website, you can send it to someone, and then the person completes the task. Then you watch the person complete the task. By the time you watch the person complete the task, you realize where they're having issue. Okay. Now you can do remote moderated testing. This means that you are not likely going to be with the person. Are you getting it? But you give the person the guidelines for them to use and complete that task. Are we together? So that is for scripted use of products. Now, what of decontextualized? When people are not currently using the product, this one is mainly used when you are still even coming up with the product. Remember, natural use of product. People are already using the product. The real customers are already using the product. Okay? Scripted use is like when you have like a prototype of the product. So you call people in-house. It's not the real product. You call a specific people to come and test it. Okay? Now, people that are not using the product, or when the product is not even materialized yet, what can you do to find out people's problem? That is when you have focus groups, interviews, and surveys. So if you are trying to solve a problem, or you are trying to get people's, you are trying to understand, empathize with people and understand their pain points about a particular process or a particular thing, you have to now do what? Interview. You get focus group. Focus group is, you recruit some people that match the specific people you want to solve problem for, and then you begin to monitor them or ask them questions. You can also do surveys, right? Which is one of the most popular ones because it's cheaper and it's also likely to give you better insights. Interviews can be expensive. Okay. Now, and the last one, limited use of products. This is basically where you use a limited form of the product to study a specific aspect of the user experience, right? So this one is just like the scripted use, but in this case, you are not showing everything. You are just studying a particular, maybe just the checkout flow to understand how users are experiencing that particular part. So in those ones, that is where you use things like participatory design, desirability studies, card sorting, concept testing, right? Maybe you are designing a website, but you just want to understand how to structure the information architecture. You can now call different people and then give them stickers with all the information that needs to be on the website, and you can tell them to arrange them. That is called card sorting. Then they arrange all those cards, they arrange all those stickers, they arrange all of them, like maybe 5 of them, we arrange it in a way that makes sense to them. Then by the time they give it to you, you can start seeing how each of them reasoned. And then from there, you can start noticing some things that are similar and then combine them to now come up with your own words, project information architecture. But the likelihood of you doing like card sorting and tree testing at this stage is zero, because you implement card sorting and tree testing when you are working with large set of data, like a large set of information, sorry, not data, large set of information. That is when you implement things like card sorting and tree testing. For most of you, most of the apps you are going to be putting in your portfolio, it might just be higher 60 screen, 20 screen, 40 screen, 10 screen, right? So, and also most of them, they already have clear paths, clear user flows. So it will not be that complicated. But imagine you are asked to come and categorize all the items that is going to be on an e-commerce store. Although now you can just go to another e-commerce store and learn from what they've done already and implement in your own, right? But that is where things like when you're working with a large set of information, that is where card sorting and tree testing comes in. Because you might actually arrange the information and think it makes sense to you. But when you send it out there, you find out that it does not make sense to a lot of people. So that's why you do all this research. Now we're about to enter the second phase of this today's class. So before we continue, do you have any question? Or is there anything you want to be clarified on? Now I've told you what it takes to have a good product, what it takes to do a good, to say, okay, this design is a good product. From there, we took a look at how do you actually empathize with users to understand their problem, right? We talked about different types of research. We talked about design thinking, and now we've talked about research methods and when to use those research. I get it. When to use those research. So, any question? Okay, remember from Wednesday we are designing. So on Wednesday, I wouldn't want to be answering questions on these other ones we've done because from Wednesday we are starting the practical from doing our own research, then creating our own designs, testing our own designs, and publishing it. Okay. Any question? Also, on Wednesday, from Wednesday going on, there are some certain things I may not answer, or there are some certain expectation I have. By Wednesday, please, I don't want to tell you to do auto frame and you don't know what an auto frame is, or you are confused. I don't want to say design a button for me and you go ahead and type and draw a rectangle under it and group it. I don't want that. From Wednesday, if I said color this particular color, or I give you a hex code and said make it that color, you should know how to do this. By Wednesday going forward, if I say, okay, create a variant or create a component and make two variants of so properties, you should know how to do that. From Wednesday going, I expect you to know how to plan your design. So if I said, okay, we are going to start a mobile app design, get your frame iPhone 13 mini, you should know how to get the frame iPhone 13 mini. If I said give it a background color red, you should know what I mean by background color red. Okay. If I say you should add border radius, corner radius, you should know what I mean by corner radius. If I say create a style, create a color style or a typography style, you should know exactly what I mean. So if you are here now and some of these things I just mentioned, you still don't understand them, raise your hand. Okay, Rema, what's your question?
Okay, sir. My question is about this usage of opacity to de-emphasize some of the write-ups in design. Is it actually ideal to use opacity, or is it because maybe when people don't have some shades of color that they use opacity to de-emphasize an element? Or I don't know, is it actually ideal to be using opacity, or maybe people do that because they don't have the shade of that particular, maybe gray or stuff? So that is my question, sir.
Okay, so using opacity helps help developers to have a little bit of control over the design, and it's also easier. Now, imagine you are a designer, you are a developer, and I have this color. Okay, I have this color, black, and inside the design, I have a lighter shade of this black. So let's remember, if you are looking for pure grays, you want to go from here to here. I told you this last time that you want to go from here. Don't come here like this. Don't move in a little bit like this. Okay. For your pure grays, you want to come here and move up like this. You can see. And if you notice, their numbers are always this, almost like just two numbers. You can see right now, if you look at the hex, you have FFF. When I move like this, you have EF, 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 E7, 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 E3, E3, E3. So they are always like that. D, 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 D7, 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 D4, D4, D4. It goes from F, E, D, C, B, all the way to A, 9, all the way to 1 and 0, 0, 0. Okay. Now, I can come in here and I can have this color here. Okay. Now I have another gray. I have another gray. I'm just trying to show you. Then I drag this a little bit more up, and this one. A little bit more up. Now, if I'm adding these colors to my styles, okay, if a developer is going to work with this, the developer is going to literally have to always declare these colors anytime he comes across these colors. He will have to declare them. That means if it is a text that have this color, he will have to single-handedly call the color again because it's a new color now, right? It's a new color. You have to add it. But with using the opacity trick is that you just have to call one color once. So you call that color once, which is black. Now, when you get to this one, you find out that, okay, the only thing I'm changing is the property of this black to, let's say, 60. Okay, let's go with, but I'm trying to get something close, okay? Maybe 50. I'm trying to get something close. Good. You can see it's still black, but I'm now using opacity to reduce the transparency, okay? The shade. I can come in here, the same color, I don't need to call another color entirely. The same color, black. The only value I'm changing here is maybe the opacity. Again, I come in here, and the only thing I'm changing here, the only value I'm changing here, instead of adding a whole new color entirely, I'm now adding what? Just like an opacity. Okay, I'm just changing the opacity. So that's why most people use transparency. So it's not like it's because they can't get that shade. You can't get any shade. In fact, in most cases, sometimes after getting your transparencies like this, okay, if you get your transparencies like this, you can still come in here, and if I get another box now, and I come here and use a pen dropper tool and select this, you can see it has given me the real value of this color. Okay, the real value of this color. And also, with transparency, I don't know, do you use an Android or an iPhone?
An Android, sir.
Okay, I think it's also on Android. Uh-huh. It's also on Android. If you notice, on your Android, when you switch off, when you off this on screensaver, and then you have what's it called, notification. Everyone, try that out. I don't know. I think it should be everybody. Are we together? Take your phone. Let's say you have some notification. Okay, on your screensaver. On your screensaver, if there's a notification on top, you likely see that's if you're in light mode. You likely see that the notification, they are inside like some white container. Okay, but if you look at that white container well, you find out that it's interacting with the background. That's are you there?
Yeah, I'm there, sir.
Now, it is this type of interaction. When you want it to interact with the background, that is when you make sure you use transparency instead of just using a lighter shade of that color. Because if you use a lighter shade of that color, you can't see through it. Are you getting it?
Yeah. Please,
Uh-huh.
though I don't, I can't relate with that example you gave.
Which phone are you using?
It's Android. It's Android, and I'm using my phone currently to be on this class, so I cannot actually.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, if you want your colors to be interacting with the underlying background, that is when you actually want to use transparency. On Apple phone, on iPhone, they use lot of transparency, that everything on Apple phone looks like a bit glassmorphic, right? You are seeing through the background. So that is where you control using transparency. So I will always prefer using transparency to make the design a little bit cleaner. But there are some elements where you don't use transparency. For instance, let's assume this is transparent, but then you have another element behind it like this. Okay, you have another element. Let me bring this to front. Oops. Okay, I have this. Now, if I go ahead and make this one transparent, it won't work well. It's not really working well. You can see I'm seeing behind and also seeing behind of this other one, except that's what we are going for. Let me send it to back. Okay, this doesn't look nice. So you only use transparency just on one layer on the foreground. Okay, not the background, the foreground. Background is the one behind. Foreground is the one on top. So if I have two elements like this, if I have two elements like this here, this is regard to as my background, and anything I put on top of it is regard to as the foreground. Okay, so this element, the color here is the foreground. This container is the foreground. This is the background. Now for this other elements, this white page is the background of it. So understanding background and foreground. Okay, so in case I say give the foreground so color, you should know what I mean. Any other question? Someone raised up their hand. Is it? Who is that person? Yusuf. Yusuf, what's your question?
I don't have any question, sir.
Okay. Godwin. Godwin, your question.
Please, can you just kind of rephrase what you just did now because I just came online not quite long.
Eh?
What you, the last thing you just did now, can you just kind of like come again?
No, I just had some colors. You were saying must we use transparency. I explain why you want to use transparency. Foreground color to interact with the background color. That is when you use transparency. And I say it's a technique that is used in most for iPhone, use it a lot, where you have a background color and you want to be able to interact with that color. So let's say we have this. Let me get a picture background. Let's test it out. So the plugin is loading. Okay, the plugin is loading. Okay, let's see. Abstract. And let's go ahead and use this first one. Okay. Now let's assume I want to place like a white container on top of this as the foreground. I can do this. If I want a light shade, okay. Okay, good. Let me make this pure white. Now let's assume what I want is white, but I want a lighter shade. This is a lighter gray. It's not pure white, it's kind of gray. But if I want it to be a little bit like gray, but also interact with the background, I don't want to use color like this. I want to instead use transparency. So I can reduce this to like 75. Let's say 80, let's go with 95. Okay, 92. Okay, so now I have also a light white color here, but you can see, unlike this one that is completely blocking out, let me bring this one a little bit up. Okay, unlike this one that is completely blocking out the background, this one I'm able to see through the background. And when you do designs like this, it just introduces some nice intricacies around the design. And it's also easier for the developer to just use that one shade to, reduce just the opacity to get different shades. Okay. Okay, Destiny, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I this particular example you're showing us now. I think you've actually talked about it in one of the videos. So, but my
Yeah.
question is that now, my question is when it comes to typography now. This one I think is
Mm.
just for some layers or some elements.
No,
So,
even
but for
typography.
okay, so my question is that if you're having a pure white background, and then
Mm,
you're having maybe your title, your header title,
mm,
then the description title now is what I'm asking. Let's
mm.
say you use black for the description title,
Uh,
then you discover sometimes in some videos they use opacity to de-emphasize it. Is it for
mm.
what you are saying to interact with the white element or the white background?
Yes. It will always be more subtle when you use opacity to control it than when you use the direct color.
Okay.
Yes. I recommend using opacity to get those different kind of shades for things like text and the container on top of backgrounds. Okay. But if you are looking for solid feel, make sure you use solid feel. Okay. Make sure you use solid feel.
All right.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay. Like I said, this is the last class we'll be discussing. From next week, we are heading to Figma and we are starting our project. Okay. So lastly, let's take a look at this, and then on Monday the project will be dropped so that you know exactly what we are working on. Let's take a look at creativity. Okay. So we're just going to explore different creativity techniques, and we will practice more on this when we start our practicals. Okay, and then we can call it a day. So what exactly is creativity? Okay. So let me skip this icebreaker. Okay. Okay. So what exactly is creativity? So creativity is the ability to generate, develop, and express new, original, and valuable ideas, solution, or products. It involves thinking beyond conventional boundaries, seeing connections that others might not see, and producing something that is both novel and useful. Creativity can manifest in various forms, including artistic expression, problem solving, innovation, and conceptual thinking. So, because one of the issues most people have is they'll say they are designing, but they don't know how to be creative, or they are not creative. Well, only about 2% of the world is born naturally creative. Every other person, you can learn anything. Left for me, I'm not supposed to be a designer. Left for me, na music I want to do. But then Sapa sat me down on a Sunday morning. And I had to choose what makes sense. The one that is bring the money. So yeah, you can learn to be creative. Everyone can be creative, okay? So it's not restricted to a small number of people. So, what exactly? I've just explained what creativity is. So, I'm saying this because I think this is related to the first question Destiny was trying to ask. Like, is it just design? What exactly am I doing? Okay. So, let's explore things like this. So, how do you become creativity? Now, creativity have different aspects: originality, imagination, innovation, problem solving, flexibility, divergent thinking, convergent thinking. Now, what I want you people to take note of today is anytime you are designing, okay, don't just go to Figma and start designing. Don't rob yourself of that part where you actually think of something. So sometimes you might want to visualize. You need to start training your imaginative skills now. Okay. So if you are to design like let's say they contact you and you are asked to design like a landing page for Nat Geo Wild, a landing page for Nat Geo Wild. Try it as much as possible to sit down, calm down, think about it, and visualize how you want that design to be. Now, in your imagination, you can do anything. Okay, in your imagination, you can do anything. Let it be that you have that imagination, but you are unable to do it, and that is where YouTube now comes in. I don't recommend YouTube if you are just starting a career. You will be confused. But once you've known the basics, YouTube and other sources comes in, right? Because one thing that YouTube is good at is if you know what you want to do. But if you don't know what you want to do, both you and YouTube, all of them go lost. Okay. Imagine you want to learn product design and you want to go on YouTube. By the time you start with product design, right? You type product design on YouTube, you are going to see a product design crash course. As you are watching that product design crash course, beside it, you will see Master Figma in 8 minutes. I'm not lying. Then you now say, oh, if like that, this one at 2 hours, hey, You click on master Figma in 8 minutes. As we are watching that one, just beside it, you will see another one. Reason why you should not become a product designer in 2024. And you click on it and you be like, before you know, you don't turn to affiliate marketer. You don't go become affiliate affiliate marketer. Affiliate marketer chop your money. You enter crypto trading. They wipe your 5K comot. You enter Bet Naija, sure odd. I get it. So I don't recommend YouTube at all for anybody. In fact, if you want to learn any skill, I don't recommend YouTube. Okay. But now that you've known some of the basics of these things, what YouTube can now help you is, let's assume you want to you visualize that, okay, for this hero section, I want a globe, and then I want a text to wrap around the globe. Okay, but you know that in these 3 months we've done this thing. We didn't actually talk about arc and all those things, text wrapping and all those things. But you've seen something like that somewhere and you want to redo it, right? You can now go to YouTube and say how to text wrap a text around a shape. Direct, you see a video that solves that problem. By the time you replicate it, you know how to do that one now. I don't know if people are following me. Or maybe you visualized and you are like, you know what? The way I want this, I want an interaction that immediately I hover, the thing morphs into another element. You can now go and say how to create a morph interaction in Figma. You do that one, you learn it. But then you have to be able to visualize what you are doing. In most cases, when I'm doing something, especially the one where they pay, the one where they pay well, if you don't pay me well, I will just use template for you. I don't care. Also, even templates are for professionals. That's why if you notice, since we started this class, I've not introduced you guys to any design system or component library. That is because it is for professional. You should know how to create buttons, know how to, on your own, no, before you go interview. Breeze go blow. They will now know that you are nobody. So that's why we've not introduced any design system yet. Okay. But if you get a company in if you get a job in most companies, they already have their component library and design system. You just be dragging and dropping. Okay. But getting the job is harder than doing the job. So getting the job, nobody is giving you drag and drop when you are getting during your interview myself. Nobody is giving you all those things. So that's why we didn't train you that way. Okay. So it's easier when you're a professional, it's easier for you to use templates. Okay. Now let me give you an example of what I mean. How many of you have tried those AI to build websites? AI where they build websites. How many of you can try? I know a lot. If you go to a place like Wix.com or all those platforms, I'll explain this later on. If you go to all those platforms like Wix.com, you see all those people, all those business owners on Instagram. Maybe they are just scrolling and then they came across that video. Here is how to build your own, create your own website with AI. Step 1, go to so website, type in what you want, click on create, your AI website is ready. Go and check all those businesses. They have abandoned the website because they thought creating a website is by typing and then AI creates websites. By the time you look at the website, when you watch the video on TikTok, it's exciting. By the time you don't pay your $20, you just know that this website it's not websiting, right? It's not websiting at all. How many of you have also tried using AI to generate logo? By the time you generate that logo, even you not feel it. There's just something that will be off. The only thing I know AI can do is to generate copy, writing, anything writing, and anything data analysis. But you see, this design is still far for AI. AI can just churn out things, but when you want to start using it, you start seeing plenty issue. Eh? Don't forget, AI knows sabi your local names. Uh-huh. By the time you tell AI may do something, we go match people where they live for Ajangbadi. You go see AI when processing that thing, you go change that Ajangbadi to the nearest English word. You go just change that to maybe Gigantron. Before you know, your website will have big fonts. Okay, all this I'm saying it to let you know that whenever you are designing, try to like visualize. Visualization is a very powerful tool. Okay, it's a very powerful tool. So, what are some of the techniques you can use to become creative? Number one is what we call scamper. Scamper. Okay, scamper. Substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, reverse, or rearrange. This is what you can do. Okay, let's assume you are using an app, and then on that app, it is slide to unlock. Okay, slide towards unlock. Do you know that that slide to unlock feature, you can now introduce it to your own fintech app, whereby if someone wants to make transfer, they now slide to transfer. And then when people see it, they'll be like, oh, you can even call the app slide pay, right? They call it slide pay. And everyone will be like, slide pay. Yeah. Anytime you want to send money, you just enter and slide. It make the payment. You can see that that experience now is different from the one of tapping the button and it loads. That is what putting to another use. Are we together? You can also substitute, combine. If you get like 3 designs, you can get like 3 designs and you take a look at what is this person doing well here that I can actually adapt to my own design. So when you are trying to redesign a screen, even after this training, if you are trying to practice and redesign a screen, don't just carry a screen and redesign it and design it exactly the way it is. Except if you are trying to master things like spacing and font sizes. But I've already given you guys those tips. For your body copy, always make sure you maintain 16, right? Now, always make sure you find something to change. Find something, but remember, change it may make sense. So no change something will go scatter everywhere. Change it to make sense. Now, there is another thing like something like adapt. Okay, maybe you are creating an app that is being used to control light, to on a light, to on light and off light. Now, some people might just put a simple switch there to say on, off. But you know that you can also use real life adaptations. And then under your design now, you can now get a bulb, a picture of a bulb, and then you drop the picture of a bulb right there, and you can create your own design. Instead of using instead of using a simple switch, a simple toggle button that goes on and off, you can put an electric bulb on that page, then create your switch to look like real life switch. Real life like sockets illustration. I'm trying to look for a design. Let me see if I can see any design. What do they call this switch? English people, what do they call them? That place where they press, it go change. Bah, bah, that thing that make that sound. When I don't know, now what? While I don't dey. Now I'm referring to this thing, this button. What do they call this button? While I don't dey. Anyway,
On and off switch.
thank you. You go get name. This is what we call an English name. Now, do you know that on that your UI design, instead of just saying putting a toggle on off, you can now Someone said tap tap. You can now create your own design on Figma to have this, okay? To look like this. Then you have green here to signify on, and maybe red here to signify off. So you have a bulb. So when the person opens the app, they see this type of switch, and when they tap it the other way, the bulb will illuminate on the app and also illuminate in their living room. You can see that experience, right? So these are ways you get creative. Okay, these are ways you become what's creative, by adapting real life scenarios. Now another way you could adapt a real life scenario is there's this website I visited. What's their name? Is it menu ng? See menu ng. There's this thing they did that I really like. It's not like the entire website. There's something they did that I really like. If you go to, I don't, is it Red Onion Restaurant? There's a particular page I'm looking for. I think it's this, but there's a particular page I'm looking for. It's not here. Now that particular page, you see, you can actually add food. Okay, you can add food to your items. I can't see that page again. But what they did was that on that particular page, I don't know, on that particular page, what they did was, you see that cat icon. You know, since this is a restaurant, instead of just putting a basket for cat icon, they did an illustration of takeaway. You know those takeaway pack. And when you click on an element, at first the takeaway pack is empty. When you click on an element, it goes inside that takeaway. And when you're about to check out, the takeaway closes. I been not be this website. Now this website, because now food I've been they look for that day to order food online. I can't, but I saw that experience, I saw that design, and it was so nice. Now, this is how you can adapt real life things into your design. I get it. That's how you can be creative. Okay. Let's assume you are making an app that teaches people how to there are just a lot of things you could think about, but try to make sure you visualize. So Scamper is one of the ways you can increase your creativity. You gather different designs or solutions, right? So even when coming up with a solution, you can take a look at 3 or more solutions and see what those people are not doing well, see what the other people are doing well, take what those people are doing well, take what app 1 is doing well, app 2 is doing well, app 3 is doing well, combine them together, and you have your own app. Are we together? That is how you become creative. Maybe you saw let's say you saw a dating app where people swipe to choose someone they like. Okay, and you like that. It does not mean it must be used on a dating app. You can now use that same idea and then introduce it to maybe an app, a shopping app. So on that shopping app, you can now have products on bigger canvas, whereby you swipe, and when you see the one you like, you select. So these are what adaptations. This is how you improve your creativity. So you cannot overemphasize design research and research entirely. Okay. Now you have Scamper. What else we have? Journey mapping. Okay, we are just going to take a look at these two, Scamper and journey mapping. Now, journey mapping is where you now put yourself in the shoe of the user and imagine them walk through that process. So journey mapping is very, very important. Anytime you are designing an app, you need to always make sure you map out the entire process of the user journey. Okay. Now, what is a user journey? User journey is that steps a user takes from the first time they hear about your product up until the time they accomplish a task with that product. So let's say the product is like a travel app. User journey starts from the first time the person come across the product. It could be that someone shared your flyer on WhatsApp, or the person saw your advert on Instagram, or the person saw it in a group chat. The first point of contact where the person heard about your product is called a touch point. From that process, when the person downloads the app, opens the app, follows the step and step and step, and book the ticket and got their ticket, that is the user journey mapping. Because when you map it out like that, it's now easier for you to see where users are likely to have challenges. Then you solve those challenges. Are we together? So you can incorporate Stamper, there's a Scamper, and also with user journey, you can envisage the journey before the user even starts the journey themselves. Are we together? Then there are other techniques like crazy eight and a whole lot of them. But it all we'll practice some of these things once we start our design process. So please, if you are here, make sure you don't miss the classes, especially starting from Wednesday. If you miss the class, if you are watching it, it no go sweet. Even if you think it goes sweet, I'll make sure it's not sweet for you. No, but try and attend this class. Now, reason why I want you to attend it so that you can ask questions. Also, I want to be able to watch you design so that if you are designing wrongly, I can easily correct you. Okay? If I don't see you designing, if you're just doing everything on your own, on your own, on your own, on your own, you might not know if you are doing it right. Okay. So, but by the time I say, okay, design, and I see you designing, I'm able to correct you. And if I correct you, you will learn faster that way. So try as much as possible to make sure you are in class Wednesday and Friday. Don't forget, once we do our design, our collective design, you also go within Thursday, you do your own design, and then Friday, you do your own design, and then Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, you complete your own design as well. Are we together? So by Monday, I'll be dropping the project we are going to be working on. Okay, so that you can see how to get a project and work on it from start to finish. Are we together? So, any other question? Any question? Okay, Destiny.
Okay, sir. The question I want to ask is that for, let's say I want to just create a random design and then post on my,
There are
maybe
no
do,
random designs.
okay, if I want to create a design, so
Okay,
what's the minimum required number of screens one should design before posting on such platform?
there is no minimum required number of design. It depends on where your strengths carry you go. But make sure it's like something complete now.
Okay. All right, sir.
Mhm. There's no minimum number. If let's say you want to say, okay, um, I want to design like a checkout flow. You plan it. Okay, how does the checkout flow work? You select product, you add to cart, you go to the payment page, and then thank you page. That's like 5 screens. If you want to select design like a payment screen, you plan it out again. Okay. So journey mapping is actually helps you know all the steps, the flows a user is going to take. So remember, as a product designer, we are the one designing for all possible moves of the user. So you have to first put yourself in that shoe. That's what journey mapping is all about. Walk the walk for that user first. So that when the user is walking the walk, it's already easier because you know all possible moves that they are likely going to make. Are you getting it? Uh-huh. Any other question? Well, if you are answering question, I know they hear you. Your mic just vibrates, but I know they hear you. Okay. Since there are no other questions, have a good day, guys. Make sure you complete your Spendy app. Monday, I will send in some articles for you to read. Remember, for UI design, you have to practice designs on Figma. For UX design and the business part of design, you have to read a lot. So aside from the ones I'll share for you to read, the ones I will share, they are likely going to be short, right? But if you really have time, invest in reading. Listen to podcasts about designs, you will learn faster because the psychological part of design is by hearing how others hacked the system so you can learn it as well. Okay, listen to design podcasts, listen to read design articles, read design news, know what is trending in the design world. Okay, good. Destiny, the last question.
Yeah. So I posted something on the comment section. You said you were going to attend to it.
Style guide and design system. What we did with Spend is like a style guide where you have like a guide, you have the color and some other components of the app to help guide the developer. A design system is more robust in the sense that it is not just living on Figma, but it's living on the companies, they've already developed it and it serves as a single source of truth for the design company, for the agency or for the brand. So Style Guide is just like a subset of a design system. Not all design, not all projects will need a design system. Okay. Design systems are used by large corporations or bigger companies. Okay. But with on a design system, you can literally find anything, any component that the system that the company uses. But the style guide is just a little subset of a design system. Okay. So with a style guide, you are just showing people, okay, this is the color I use, this is the name of the color, things like that. But design system is more elaborate. In fact, most of the things you even see on Google, on Figma, they are more of component library, not necessarily design system. Design system are the coded ones. Okay, they're the coded ones. Okay. But don't worry about design systems now. Okay. The role is please. So after this training, role where you go to apply. Now entry level and junior level. No go say you won't go apply for senior level. And then when they ask you question, you go say they no teach you. Because I knew this thing are free. I know say they no teach us anything. Now free we do. You finish 3 months training. You won't go to apply job with people who get 7 years experience in design. Continue. It's God that will judge you. What you're applying for is things like um, entry level designs, junior designers. Now, those kind of designs during the interview, they no go ask you any, they no go say design system or whatever it is. Um, I think you have to ask the admin. Okay, so I really don't know. Say ask the admin. Okay, but internship. When you say internship, make sure any internship you are getting is paid. If it's not paid, you just design. If you finish this thing, design website for your church, show them. Design for your mosque, show them. If your papa gets shop where they sell electronics, design e-commerce system, show am. uh Instead of to go do internship where they no go pay you 1 naira. And in fact, if you go that internship sef, they go turn you to person where they go buy food. You instead of internship, you become food vendor. But if you get an internship, it's awesome. You can always go and get real life experience. Okay. Um, okay, guys, have a great night. Entry level now, beginner level now, beginner level, beginner level. Don't go and say you are looking for senior level. Uh-huh. Okay, good night, guys.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Uh-huh. Let me end the recording.
Thank you, sir.